Hello, everybody, and welcome to OpenExO Live. It's really great to be with you today. And as you can see here on the screen, today we're speaking with Gary Ralston, who is in Sutton Bay in Michigan. And you can see some awesome people coming up in the coming weeks. And we will be doing a new call for the next round of OpenExO Live. So if you're a community member and you want to share your story, what you're doing, how you're leveraging EXO, do apply in the marketplace so that we can have you on the show. And before we get Gary up on screen, I do have a few words from some of our community members. And the first one comes from Zhang, and she just said, Gary is the pocket knife of coaches. For every challenge that arises, he is equipped with the right tools and mindset to solve the problem. In addition to his knowledge and ability, he is a lovely person to work with. Gary is always kind, considerate, and knows just how to keep things fun while staying professional. Next up from Suman, when Gary talks, I listen. I listen to him intently as there is so much that I can take back from him. And the most amazing thing, he is always ready to share his ocean of knowledge. He is a master of concepts, tools, frameworks, and he puts them all together so well as an outstanding EXO coach. Gary, you are so cool. Next, we have from Francisco. I worked with Gary during several EXO sprints and attended several workshop sessions together. He has always been an open and kind professional with dozens of new assets to add to the team toolbox and good examples of how things work better. I'm thrilled to start working with him again shortly on a new sprint. And then lastly, we have from Christina Maria, Gary's work facilitating exponential growth and transformation for his clients all over the world is on another level. He's powered by purpose and deep ongoing exposure to and cross-application of concepts which span genres from aerospace to microelectronics to social initiatives, integrating and interfacing with his world-class network in those and other areas of disruption and innovation. And so with that, I want to welcome up Gary. How are you doing this early morning for you? Well, mid-morning for you.
Well, frankly, choked up and humbled. That yeah, it's
not expected.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just do what I do, and you know, I think that I remember this stories of you know, you have the hero's journey and then you have the village, right? And so the young person goes in the walkabout and they come back, and one of my mentors said, you know, what's the job of the village in this story? And it's to reflect what the young person in walkabout has gone through. And I am a different person now for having been part of this great community. Yeah, it's humbling.
Awesome. So Gary, I always start by asking the person I'm chatting to give a bit of a background about yourself. I guess you don't have to go back to childhood, but yeah, give us a bit of background about Gary. You know, your passions. You know, what you've done from a career standpoint as well. But you know, everything sort of up until joining the community. You've been in the community for a long time, and so yeah. So if you could share a little bit for folks.
Sure. Okay. Well, so I'm originally from Victoria, British Columbia, Canada, and Vancouver, the West Coast. And I was talking with Salim. He just found that out, and he goes, "Oh, that explains something. You're so polite." You know, and guffawed when she heard that, because she knows that I am not always. But so my journey really has been in I think 4 blocks, let's call it. The first block was very much involved in youth leadership and working in the YMCA community. The next part was working in the desktop publishing revolution and computers and Macs and all of that, and had a system integration company that I sold. The third part was transitioning from IT, where we often had to understand business models better than the business people did in order to automate them. I went and I said, let me parlay this into working with the C-suite. And so got into business consulting. That led into coaching. And again, more and more what we saw was that companies basically started with one product that got them going, but then how did they renew themselves? How did they rejuvenate? So this question of ongoing innovation seems so important. When I joined the scaling up coaches community, the leader, Keith Cupp at the time, said, you really need to see what Salim and team are doing. And because it was kind of being framed by Vern Harnish, the creator of Scaling Up, as, well, if there's a Scaling Up 2.0, it's this exponential organizations work. And that was about 2015. And we dove into it and went through the Growth Institute training. Both my wife and I were involved in it and still are. And it's been really transformational. We may do other business coaching that's a little more plain vanilla, but this is where we push our own thinking and where we get our heart, soul, and energy and hope.
No, absolutely. And the first time I actually came across both yourself and Anne was when I just joined the community and was helping put together the attribute documents, how to implement the attributes, for the Growth Institute course. I had just gone through the Growth Institute course. I think it was the second version of it. And so it's always crazy to think that the time has gone by. And I've never met you or Anne in person, actually. Yet I do sort of feel like I know you fairly well, but yeah. So obviously for the EXO model, one thing that's really important is an MTP, is starting with purpose. And so, for yourself, are you happy to share your, personal massive transformative purpose?
Sure. We believe that purpose-driven organizations can be a civilizing force for us all and for a better future. And so what Anne and I do is we help people build and lead thriving purpose-driven organizations. And that's really what we do, and why we do it is so that our grandkids can have a better planet to be on. Yeah,
absolutely. Now we've got a question from the audience, so we're gonna jump into that, and that comes from Rodrigo, where he's just saying, what are the most innovative technologies you've worked with, and what impact have you seen them make in the organizations you've consulted for? So a little bit on the spot there, but thanks, Rodrigo, for sending in the question.
No, that's a really great thing, and I'm going to turn it about a bit, because I think the most innovative technologies that we're discovering are about mindset. They're about how do we actually engage in our own staying fresh. So things like, my wife and I work with the Flow Research Collective, and Stephen Kotler wrote a book, many books, but with Peter Diamandis, who our audience knows, The Future is Faster Than You Think, and Abundance. And so Stephen Kotler paired up with him. Now, Stephen wrote a book recently called The Art of Impossible. And it really is taking a look at the the nature of flow, which has been kind of like a state where you're hyper focused and all your resources are brought to the fore. And while it's been measured well in creativity, where the leading edge of this technology is, how do we apply flow states to innovation? And as we were studying flow, we actually looked back at the design of the EXO Sprint. And we said, you know, there are many flow triggers that are built into the sprint. For instance, overloading people in week 2. What we've learned about flow is it's not something that you just drift into, that actually there's a struggle that happens that then leads into the flow state. And so, you know, in some ways, whether it's by design or empirically, the sprint does help to create this team flow. So those are the areas of technology. Sure, I could point to ChatGPT or space programs or material science and other things, but it's the human mind that fascinates me.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. And it takes that human, that, you know, that open human mind to be able to leverage any technology anyway, right?
Exactly.
So, you know, and you know, you were speaking about books and reading, you know, about Stephen. I mean, I think Stealing Fire by Stephen Kotler and Jamie Wheel is an amazing book. I love that book.
Yeah,
but you know, I know you're someone who like reads a lot. You also, you know, are constantly learning, right? So, you know, what would you say, you know, people should be reading, or you know, what is capturing your attention with regards to, you know, what you're reading right now?
Well, I think that one of the core things in innovation is storytelling. That we need to be able to tell stories of how the future is going to be different than today. And some of the most exciting books that I've read recently are science fiction, but they are near science fiction. So science fiction has these two models, right? One is post-apocalypse, where something horrible happens, and then the science fiction writer can write a completely new world, you know, world building and universe. But then there's the ones that are extrapolating directly from where we are today. And there are two authors that I highly recommend people in this community read. One is Kim Stanley Robinson's book on, it's called Ministry for the Future. And it really does take a look at what kind of macro forces might be necessary and even extreme measures to actually address climate change. The second person that I've always been fascinated with is Daniel Suarez. And even from a book called Change Agent that was about, you know, if you could use CRISPR so much on a human body that you could actually, in this case, the protagonist gets turned into looking like the villain and then has to, you know, fight his identity back. But the latest one, Delta V and Critical Mass, are two books that Daniel Suarez researched the heck out of. And it's about how do we actually create commercial space industry in asteroid mining and the moon and cislunar space. And you can think of these books, yes, as fiction, as entertainment, but also as scenario planning, as thought experiments that really paint just an incredible future. And I think that we must go out there so that our belief spotlight includes things that, you know, the future is going to, if you said it was going to happen tomorrow, would be preposterous. But 20 years from now, it's magical. So, you know, we must be able to be in that preposterous place today in order to be there in 20 years.
No, absolutely. I mean, we're living in a time where people feel like more and more uncertain, right? You know, whether it's, you know, I mean, this balloon that just got shot down, for example, and, you know, people are like, you know, so we've got the war in Ukraine, and, you know, does this mean that, you know, China's showing force to actually, you know, start war in Taiwan, etc. You know, like, so there's all these questions, and then, I mean, there's, you know, inflation and energy crisis, happening in certain places, etc. And so it's quite hard for people to think that the future is going to be good. And of course, we all know that crisis news, makes us feel that it's definitely not going to be. But how do you think about the future?
Yeah, no, absolutely a fair question, Kevin. And I think that I am ambivalent about it. So we worked with the First Nations on the coast of Canada, and they've been there for 9,500 years, right, without a problem. And then we have European colonialism, and the essence of what they're talking about is thinking 7 generations forward, that we are not the masters of the present. We are stewards of the future that's been loaned to us. And this mindset of actually having an overriding long-term focus to modulate the decisions we make in the short term. And certainly, I mean, I've got my 3rd grandchild on the way, and I can tell you that knowing that we have descendants coming, away from our family unit, and thinking, how will I stand to protect the future that I've been given it to hold? So I want to see these core values and this long vision embedded in what we're doing. That's why we work with purpose-driven companies and not just profit-driven companies. I don't know if I answered your question, Kevin, but
yeah, no, I mean, I think so, right? I mean, ultimately, you're saying that that it's you put it upon yourself. I mean, within the work you do to create a better future, right? And I mean, as individuals, that's all we can really do, right? Is to speak up about about the bad things, and to do work that is moving us in a better direction, right? In a direction that is more more positive, more purpose driven. And I mean, there's a lot of talk about purpose, right, within business, and it's become more and more the case. Many of us have worked in corporates that have had purpose and vision statements that were not lived, that that are just on the wall. The EXO model says you need a massive transformative purpose, but a real one, because if it's not real, you can't leverage the other attributes. So I guess on that front, the EXO model is a great model for building future organizations, or current organizations that build a better future, at least. Why would you say? Do you think that that's a true statement, or that that exponential organizations are part of the solution, at least to a better future?
Well, I think that what you say is so, but I want to make a distinction between willpower and structure. Okay, who has more control of a ship, the ship's designer or a captain? And if you're sailing a sailboat, it goes at the speed the designer designed it, and no more. And super tankers and speedboats and things like that. So I think that while willpower is important, you really have to say, how do you actually create systems and structures that determine the behavior that leads to the future we want? And so it is so important that enthusiasm alone will not save us. And so we need structuralists, we need people working in systems, and we need those dynamics embedded in the companies of the future. So I know that's a bit of a technical point, but it's incredibly important to remember that willpower will not solve the future, because you can't fool mother structure.
I mean, absolutely. And I guess back to that, to the conversation about the, the future, because structures, and Salim speaks about it as well, that a lot of societies, the way society is structured, doesn't necessarily fit, moving into the future. I often speak about, do we have a massive canyon that we have to cross, which unfortunately is quite negative. Is there destruction before there's rebirth? We've seen this happen in the future. Does that mean we have to follow what's happened in the past? And so I would agree with you 100% that there's a lot of structural change that needs to happen. And, yes, a lot can happen from a grassroots level, but also there needs to be a lot of shifting in the current, leaders, right? So some thoughts around that.
I'm going to go back to Kim Stanley Robinson's book, Ministry for the Future, because that's exactly what it's about. And, basically, our political system is we're solving 20, 50, and 100-year problems with people that are reelected every 2 to 4 years. And so the reward system for a politician is does not encourage this long term. And when you take a look at one of the gifts that Jeff Bezos had, was to soundly ignore or withstand the pressures of Wall Street as he was building Amazon. Talk to the hand, because I've got different plans for the future, and they're going to take a different course than your short-term motivation. So how we actually structure long-term rewards to be more powerful than the short-term rewards is one of the great conundrums that we face at every turn in our society and in our business and our lives. So, yeah, there's a big lot.
No, I mean, it's. I think it's important for more and more of us to be to speak about this, because so many people just hope that the systems will work out in the end, when actually no, it takes like active I guess participation to make them change. I can remember I was running a workshop in India, actually, with Suman, who I believe is watching on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And one of the participants who was a CFO at a multinational, made the comment also just about how we reward people, saying that he believes that CEOs should get their bonus 5 to 10 years after they've left the company already, right?
Yes. Exactly. Yes.
And that sort of longer term thinking, it's so interesting, because we many organizations say we can't think beyond just the next month, because the world is changing so quickly, but we have to be thinking long term first, right? And I guess that's also where an MTP comes in, or a purpose comes in. It's like you're looking 50, 100 years out, and that's where you're striving towards. But yes, you still need to be agile enough to make changes on a daily basis, right?
Absolutely. And I think values are these unfortunate things that you discover when it's inconvenient to have them. I tell the truth when it would be easier to lie, or that kind of thing. And so organizations profess a lot, but as you said earlier, we really must track what they do, not what they say. And this is the proof in the pudding of their lived values. So, and on that point of incentives that you brought up, I'm reminded of a book by Safi Bahcall called Loon Shots, not moonshots, but loon shots, like the Canadian currency. And the nub of that is that organizations that innovate have people who have their stake in the outcome, and organizations that are very execution focused have people who want rank in the organization. And so this shift from stake in the outcome to rank in the organization is one of the red flags that companies should be paying attention to. And read Loon Shots, read about the chief compensation officer, that because reward systems are part of those structural solutions that we must resolve. How do we reward for the long term rather than the short term? The collective rather than the individual. Those are the reward systems that are profoundly powerful in us creating a better future.
Absolutely. Now, Gary, I want to keep talking, but we've pretty much hit the cap. This is not one of these 5-hour podcasts, but we definitely could do that. I could chat for such a long time. I always end off by asking, what is that one thing that you would like people to take away? We've shared a lot. We've sort of gone up and down, but what is one thing you'd like people to take away?
I'd like them to take a bias to action around experimentation. I want you to really understand what it means. Go back to that, the EXO tools that Kevin was part of co-creating, and go get that experimentation sheet out and actually work through what are the experiments that you're going to run, and get your own data. Please do not rely on ChatGPT, which I think is the fastest bullshitter in the world right now. And I want you to go and say, how can you get your own data and discover what's true? Don't leave it to secondhand. That'd be my call to action.
Couldn't agree more, Gary. It's been wonderful chatting to you. Hopefully, we get to chat again soon. Enjoy the time on the sprint. Hopefully that goes well. But wonderful chatting to you, and we'll chat to you soon, hopefully.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Kevin. Bye for now.
Bye-bye. So great chatting to Gary. And as he said, experimentation, it is really important. So many people run experiments with really poor hypotheses and turn the data to what they want. That's not a real experiment. But with that, to Oscar, who asked the question really late here on LinkedIn. I just saw it now. Apologies. We hopefully will be able to get an answer to that in the LinkedIn chat. But we'll see you again next week. I'm going to close out just with a short video for the new book. If you want to read Exponential Organizations 2.0 in its draft format still, do go over to the OpenExO platform and give it a read. We'll see you all next week.